gummy bear.
It's the internet, you're busy. Let's do this for January 5th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, we get a look at what is coming to PS5 in 2024, and some interesting hardware news begins squeaking out of CES. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jason Fanelli, everybody. Jason, how are you doing?
Feeling good. As we were talking about before the show, like everybody else, I've started going back to the gym. Only now, this time, I'm doing it at 5:30 in the morning, trying to get that shed them pounds that I regained after having, two kids and all that good stuff. But that's everybody's doing that. Still playing good games, having a good time. Lots of news today, which is exciting. Yeah, doing good. How are you, Jeff?
Doing good. I was thinking about New Year's resolutions and all that stuff, and I was listening to Nextlander this morning. I was going to get my license plate, which we're going to talk about that in a second as well. But I was listening to it, and Vinny made a good point of, instead of having a resolution, having a goal for like where you want to be at in 2025 is maybe something more effective, or maybe combining the two probably works really well as well. And I'm like, okay, yeah, my resolution. Yeah, I want to do some stuff. I want to like keep walking every morning. I think I might want to like double my walk. I was doing this 2.5 mile loop. I'm like, if I get there and maybe walk a little bit faster, I could fit in like a 5 mile walk every morning. And I bet that would actually like be most of what I need every day if I could do that.
Sure.
So like that's like the plan of action. Yeah, but the goal is to be like significantly healthier by 2025 in terms of like the LDLs, right? Those cholesterol levels. That's the one thing on my blood report that was like problematic, and it's not even that bad. It's just like I can manage this if I eat a little bit less red meat and eat a few more vegetables and then do a little bit more exercise, and I'll be good. So the goal is to get that number a little bit down, and we got some ideas. So, and I'm not doing it 5:30, although there's definitely a period of my life early, and especially when the kids were younger, and my wife was going to work every day, and I was working during the day and taking care of the kids all day simultaneously. I'm like, I got up every day at 4:30 and got everything out of my life out of the way first thing when everyone else was still asleep. So then the rest of the day could belong to everyone else. At this point, with the kids going to school and me taking them every day, it's a little bit harder, but making it work. I don't know.
You know what? That's exactly the same mentality I'm using. Just I do everything, do the workout before I take the kids to school or take them to the babysitter still or what have you. I don't work out as long, like 2.5 mile walk. I don't fit that much time in there, but I make it up with the incline.
That's great.
The incline on the treadmill, 30 minutes on the incline and burn about 800 calories. Awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then, so I've moved to Ohio about a year and a half ago, a little bit more than that. Finally got my Ohio plates. I've been trying for about a year to get my plates. There was several visits. First of all, it's like this process of where do I need to go first? Because this bureau needs this piece of paperwork, and I can't get that unless I have this piece of paperwork. And they won't give me that unless I have my birth certificate. So it's like, okay, first we got to find the birth certificate. And that took a while. I found that eventually. Then I went to the title office to get my title for my van transferred from Colorado to Ohio. And they're like, okay, yeah, you can't bring in a copy. We have to like reach out to your credit union. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure my credit union just had a bunch of layoffs. I wonder if there's even anyone working there anymore.
No.
Yeah. So it's like that took months for someone to respond. And I had to like visit multiple times because I would call and they'd be like, you already did this. Like, we'll call you when we get it. I'm like, it's been 3 months. I haven't heard anything. So the last time I sort of like called everyone beforehand, it was just like, okay, you're going to get a call or an email or fax from them. Just be ready for it, and you be ready for the response. And finally got the title transferred, and now I got the title in hand and was able this morning to finally get my license plate and registration, and just in time because we got to get new car insurance because the last one kicked us off because she's no longer a teacher and we had teacher insurance. So I'm like, I wasn't going to be able to get car insurance, so that would have been real bad. So we're good now.
Yeah,
it's all taken care of. But man, what a mess. And it's hard because like I like some routine. Like I like this show every day. And then, the days when we're not doing the show, we're doing the bombcast. But it's like, man, that stuff kind of just like balloons into taking up a lot of the day. And I think about this. And then by the time I'm done with everything, it's like, oh, I guess I could run to somewhere at the end of the day. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. So going up and doing that stuff first thing in the morning is the only real answer, and I'm glad I was able to get that done finally.
Yeah. I'm glad you are too. Jeff gets his plates. The Telltale series coming.
Exactly. It's going to be a Game of the Year winner, I'm sure, everybody. Oh boy. All right. So Friday, let's get into it and explain what we do here. Most weekdays, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, Silent Hill 2 Remake are both launching this year. This comes from Marcus Stewart at Game Informer. PlayStation has released a promotional video highlighting some of the biggest games coming to its console this year. The video hypes both first and third-party releases, many of which already had release dates / windows, but it also casually confirms 2024 launches for 2 previously undated projects. Specifically, the video labels Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, and Silent Hill 2 as 2024 games. This puts us in a situation, Jason, where now we kind of have a pretty good idea of what PlayStation 5's release schedule looks like. Not in terms of first party, but in terms of these partnership games. They now have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? That's the name of it. Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, and Silent Hill 2 Remake. And I'm at a point where it's like, oh, okay. If all that's happening this year, that's pretty good. PS5 is suddenly in like a really good position for 2024, regardless of what happens with first party. And I bet we're going to get some stuff from first party that we don't know about necessarily right now.
That's right.
Not counting things like Concord and maybe Fair Games, things that we knew about that are still these big question marks. The more surefire hits from PlayStation in terms of their first party games and their single player narrative games. Something's probably going to happen with that. But maybe Fair Games and Concord are big as well. Those are also scheduled to come out in 2024. So it's like, last couple of weeks, it's like, man, what's PlayStation doing in 2024? And now I'm like, hey, this looks pretty good. How do you feel about it?
The same way. One of these surprises me more than the other. I kind of expected Silent Hill 2 Remake this year, but to see Snake Eater on there as well really kind of took me off guard. Like when I first saw the video pop up on my YouTube feed, I didn't pay any mind. I'm like, oh, we're just talking about games that are coming out this year. It's 2 minutes long, probably a sizzle reel. I've seen those before. So I kind of skipped it. And then I saw this headline actually from Game Informer and it said, wait, Snake Eater was in there? And then I went back and watched it. And there it was. Why they didn't have it front and center in the thumbnail, I'll never understand. But if they can get this out by the end of the year, I'm with you on that. I feel like the what you just said, plus the January already has, like a Dragon Infinite, Tekken 8, and then, moving into Rebirth in February. That is a very solid third-party foundation there. And then they could just sprinkle first party as much as they want, at least outside of what we already talked about, Concord and Fair Games. But honestly, Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, and Final Fantasy all coming out the same year. Are we in like 2002?
Yeah.
What's going on here? It's really, really cool. Of the 3, Rebirth, because it's so close, obviously I'm most excited for.
Sure.
But I really want to see more of this Delta. I really do, because 3 is my favorite Metal Gear Solid. Easy. I loved the whole... I love the idea of going back to the beginning before you can finish the story, if that makes sense. So to see how they mess with that, like what other sort of weird Easter eggy things they could put in there, I'm very much excited for that.
Yeah, same here. I've actually never played Metal Gear Solid 3, so this will be my first time. I've talked to people like, I might just wait for this one instead of like trying to go back and play the originals or Subsistence at this point or something like that. Sure. So yeah, looking forward to that. I think that Sony's in a situation where so everyone's in a situation where these games are getting more expensive, taking longer to make. Sony's trying a couple of different strategies. We know that a lot of their bigger studios, for the most part, had several big games come out over the last couple of years to a point where we expect them to take a couple more years after this one to reload and be ready to launch something else. Maybe with the exception of Sucker Punch, they could, I guess, have the follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima this year, maybe next year. We don't really know. But if one of those studios is going to have a game like that we are all anticipating, that one seems most likely, maybe. Even if that doesn't happen this year now, and we're relying on these third party exclusives here for the most part, or at least the ones that aren't going to be on Xbox. Is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater on Xbox?
I believe it is. Yes, I
That
remember
one's
that
definitely
being
on PC.
a big.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that being a big source of confusion when that trailer first hit because it hit during a PlayStation
Right.
video. But then there was more in the Xbox partner preview, if you remember, a little bit later on in September.
Right.
So, and that nobody expected it there, and there it was. So, that is multi-platform. I think they're the only one of the three that I mentioned earlier. Rebirth is the only PS exclusive. Yeah,
I thought Silent Hill 2 remake was.
Oh, is it?
I thought so.
I don't do horror well, thank you, family history. So I'm off. I'm a little off on that particular one.
Yeah, I think so, but that one I'm not 100% sure as well. But I mean, either way, it's like, PS5 is multi-platform or not. These will be big games that will help. There is questions of like, okay, is this the state of third-party gaming right now, relying on a lot of remakes and remasters? And it's like, to a certain extent, yeah. These things are more surefire than if you were to try something new. And the reality is a lot of people are asking for these. A lot of people want these remakes. So they're going to give people what they want, and they probably will perform really well. And hopefully this stuff pays for riskier projects down the line.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I don't know. Right now I'm feeling pretty good about 2024 based on these games. Go ahead.
So we're getting to a point where it's becoming cliche to blame the pandemic for certain things. But if you're starting a project in 2020, 2021, a remake is, as you've said, a sure success. People are asking for these games anyway. So get your pipeline going again with a project like this, reap those benefits, hopefully, as long as it's a solid remake, and then do the risky thing later on. We're getting out of the range where we can do that now, but I feel like something like Snake Eater Delta was probably greenlit, when everyone was remote working, not sure when everything's going to get back. Some of these studios probably are still remote working. And a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, it works for me. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So, I completely agree with you.
Yep. And then we probably will be hearing from these. I mean, this was a sizzle reel, like you said. This was also a blog post. I think this news right here, along with all the other games, like they could have given updates on that in like a state of play. I think the fact that they didn't, to me, it's just maybe they're not ready for a state of play, or maybe they are saving bigger things for a state of play. A lot of times, state of play is for like their contractual obligations to partners, where they're like, hey, we will do a certain amount of marketing for you, and they attach a market value to putting you in a state of play. And they're like, okay, that represents the amount of money that we promised you because we put you in the state of play, and now we're square on that. But they also occasionally are going to have the bigger announcements, and maybe they're trying to make a decent state of play. I still expect something from PlayStation along those lines in the first 3 months of the year, maybe even sooner than that. So, I mean, does that sound right? And when we do, like, what is the game? Is Ghost of Tsushima? Is it the follow up to that, or do you have something else in mind that you want to see from PlayStation for them announcing for this year?
I agree with you that Sucker Punch is probably the next first party studio to come out with something of note, but would they go back to Infamous, you think? Or you think they're going to ride that Tsushima wave as long as they can? I loved Tsushima and I loved the first Infamous. So for me personally, they could go either way. I think if I had to flip a coin, it would be, or if I had to pick one, it would be Tsushima, just because the way that game ended was phenomenal. And I'd like to see if they could branch off of that somehow. But Infamous is still there. It's a more dormant franchise. What was it? Second Son? Is that what that was called?
Yes, there's definitely a Second Son. Yes.
Yes, for 1, 2, and then Second Son was for PS4, and we haven't seen anything since other than that first light expansion. So that might be something they might want to dip back into. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what other first party studios there are that could surprise us. But nothing really comes to mind.
The Astrobot studio. Asobo, yeah, I always conflate them. Asobo, they didn't have anything for PSVR 2. They haven't had anything since launch. We are now in 2024. The console launched in 2020. You would expect their kind of game would be able to get done in about 4 years, and maybe they started it before Astro launched with the PS5. So maybe they're 5 years into something right now. I would love that. At this point, I hope it's not a PSVR 2 game. I guess it still could be. But I would, if it's Astrobot 2, like the VR, like the follow up to the VR platformer, that would be great. Whatever. But I think they have the chance to have something else. But that's like the more family game, the more broadly appealing game, and that feels like Sony would. I don't know. It feels like Sony wouldn't rely on something like that. They would have something more like a Ghost of Tsushima 2, a Ghost 2,
Sure.
to go along with that. When it comes to between Infamous and Ghost, I do think they will do something with Infamous again, but I think first up they probably do something like a remastered collection or something like that to kind of reestablish
reintroduce
that series. I think from Sony's perspective, it is hard to be like get excited about Infamous when they're like, man, Spider-Man is kind of eating that thing's lunch.
That's a good point,
right? Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't even considered that as it was exiting my mouth. Spider-Man 2 just came out.
Yeah,
we kind of know their plans, unfortunately, what's going on there. So there may be some other superhero games in the pipeline that I'm not going to mention out of respect. But so yeah, it's Ghost of Tsushima does make more sense, I think. And I'm trying to, if I'm like half distracted here, I'm trying to see when their last state of play was. Before the September one, like their one in the first 3 months.
That'd be great if we could
just to kind of match.
Good. So I think we know Nintendo almost does a direct almost every February around that time, right? So we're at that. The expectations are there for that. Everyone's like still anticipating that. It feels like Microsoft could have like a developer direct anytime in the first 3 months, maybe sooner than that as well. So it's like Microsoft, Nintendo getting ready for something. That's great, but it's like the bigger question still, even with all this like news about Metal Gear and Silent Hill, the news still for Sony is like, what are you doing, PlayStation? What are your studios? What is first party doing? More so than what is happening with. We know of several Nintendo games coming out this year, and Microsoft has got 1 million games announced that haven't come out yet. So yeah, we're anticipating updates on those, and maybe a couple of new announcements here and there, but mostly updates on things that have already been talked about. For PlayStation, it's Wolverine that we now know is coming out in 2025. So what's going on? I'm expecting the state of play. It just makes sense for them to, or something along those lines, some platform for them to announce things.
I think they kind of have to do a showcase, honestly. If you notice, they have the state of play, which is more third-party, indie, partner-oriented, and then the showcase, which is their first-party stuff.
Kind of E3 equivalent sometimes, yes.
Yes. That, if they're going to do anything, and if you want to expand it to the first 6 months of the year, that's what it has to be for those exact concerns that you're talking about.
They did a showcase last year around June. Yeah,
June-ish? I think it was around Summer Games Fest.
Yeah, it was a little bit before Summer Games Fest, yes. I remember because I was hearing about it, and I was talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, there's one coming up soon. It's going to be a showcase, and I've heard that they're really proud of it. And it came out, and then that was the one everyone was really disappointed by, actually. So it's
June 2, June 3, something like that.
Yeah, in that range. So I mean, I guess they don't necessarily have to stick to that time frame, but I would expect them to probably be like, well, we'll just kind of get things ready for that. But then it just comes back to Sony's got to start talking about this year in PlayStation first party studios at some point. So maybe it'll happen sooner rather than later.
Hopefully.
All right, moving on here. Steam's top 10 games captured over 60% of revenue in 2023. This is from Jordan Fragan at GamesBeat. Steam had a record-breaking 2023, but Valve's PC game storefront is increasingly becoming a winner-take-all marketplace, according to Video Game Insights. The firm's latest report shows that full game revenue grew 18% to $9 billion in 2023, doubling 2019's total. Games released in 2023 accounted for $3 billion, or a third of full games revenue last year. A third of full games revenue last year. However, the top 10 new releases captured about $1.85 billion of all full games revenue. These 10 titles accounted for 20% of all full games revenue on Steam in 2023 and 61% of all full games revenue from new releases. This proportion has grown 50% from 2019, where the top 10 new games captured 41% of new full game revenues. Notably, Baldur's Gate 3 was the biggest winner. Alone the title earned an estimated $657 million in full game revenue, or 21% of all revenue earned by 2023's releases. I think it's like, when we stop and think about it, this makes a lot of sense because, okay, so we talk about 2023, one of the best gaming years ever, but
sure.
Marino who did our guest list, like he collated all the guest lists, and he like always does this like data analysis of all the different takes. And so there's about 40, 50 lists or whatever. And despite this,
I have to apologize to him.
No worries. But it's like it's like we get to a point where it's actually there are a fewer different number of games than there are in many other years that we consider to be worse years than this one. And it's because people coalesce around, well, no, we agree. These 5 games are the games that make this the best gaming year ever. And turns out all those games are several hundred hours long, or they can be, or many of them are. And some of the other ones are games you could play for forever. And so it's like they just kind of take up all the time, take up all the oxygen out of the room. So I'm like, in a year like 2023, I'm not too surprised to hear this. And people like to play the things that everyone else is playing. That's what, that's how we connect through our hobbies is like, I want to have conversations about these things. So I'm not too surprised to hear this. How about you?
I'm not either. Although I guess I thought maybe the gap would be less in the top 10 new releases section, because if you pair this with the news yesterday that over 14,000 games launched on Steam in the in the year 2023,
correct,
that tells you just how much noise you have to break through in order to get your game noticed, and what makes a thing like Lethal Company such a diamond in the rough, because you have not only are you dealing with the top 10 games dealing all of this, if you expound upon it, I believe the data says here, the top 100 brought that even further out. And then you have like only 181 of those games are AA or AAA. And then the rest are vapor, shovel, whatever you want to call it. So it's just so much noise to break through as a small indie developer or a single indie developer. So you need, for me, this is a good way for those types of developers to kind of regulate their expectations.
Put things in perspective. Yes.
Right. They don't want to come out and think they're going to conquer Steam, because you're not going to conquer Steam. The AAA game that everybody's talking about is going to do that, as you see here.
Well, it gets to a point like it gets to the point where all creative mediums get to, right? Where, anyone can write a song these days.
That's true.
What is the expectation that your song is going to be a Taylor Swift hit? It's basically 0%. It's basically 0%. You essentially have no chance of ever having anything that you write be that popular. Gaming's not even that bad yet. Even with 14,000 games hitting Steam and all that stuff, it's like somehow it feels like discoverability in gaming is relatively decent, all things considered. But the reality is you're going to start making a game today. You are going to be in that. You were mentioning the top 100 games. That's 91% of all revenue on Steam. Yes. So it's like,
Jesus,
that's just 100 games, 91% of that revenue. You're talking about if you make a game that is anything else, you are in triple digits. $100 is you're going to make from your game. So treat it like a hobby. Don't invest money in making games until you start making money from making games. That sort of thing. It's the hard lessons that everyone else learns in all these other creative mediums, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is starting to sound like one of those multi-level marketing schemes that you hear about which is not. It's obviously it's not. It's just, I don't want to make that correlation too much, but it really is. If you're just starting out with your own little rig and trying to make a game that you think is cool, you can launch it on Steam all you want. But I think platforms like, and this data shows platforms like Itch.io or things like that might be better off for your first couple of games. Then you start to make a little bit of money. Hopefully your games get popular, and then you can start to actually focus, like you said, on investing and doing things like that. It's a lot of people talk about how the industry is in this weird flux situation with all the layoffs, and maybe there's a bubble bursting. This does seem pretty top heavy, right? Like, I'm not imagining that.
No, yes, it is.
I wonder if maybe those fears are more founded than I originally thought. I don't know.
I think so. If we do compare it to other industries or like movies, like where do you think the next big couple of movies are going to come from next year? Or like we can look at like what has happened over the last 10 years. Like it was a news story that Universal, a well-established, long-running production publishing company in movies, made more money than Disney for the first time in like 10 years. For the last 10 years, Disney was the top earning publishing company. And then in gaming, it's like, yeah, we have that, like, it's Activision, Nintendo kind of take all this stuff, but we like look at like what like individual game it could break out and like make some of the most money this year. The idea, like, no one would have predicted Baldur's Gate 3. Like for movies, it's like true. It's like, yeah, okay, we're predicting, yeah, Barbie kind of came out of nowhere, but it's not the same thing as like a little indie studio coming out of nowhere, or like Lethal Company. Lethal Company right. is like really out of nowhere. And that doesn't happen in movies, doesn't happen in music, doesn't happen in just about anywhere. Like, you have to work through an established, bigger company, and they have to have their whole marketing department throw all their weight behind you to have any chance. And then when there is a breakout hit, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's like, well, we're talking like $100 million for that. That's not actually the top grossing movie of the year. It's like a really surprise hit, and it's $100 million. And gaming, it's like, no, you can make $1 billion by coming out of nowhere. And so it's like there's a dynamism to gaming still, especially on PC, not so much on mobile. Mobile's very, very stagnant, even more so than all these other industries. But in terms of PC gaming, where it's like anyone can put your stuff on Steam and you're probably not going to succeed. But when there are the occasional examples where that does happen, and so it's like, yeah, you're mostly scrounging, you're mostly not going to get by, but it is, comparatively speaking, way more dynamic than any of these other industries. So yeah, it's top heavy, but I think that's kind of how these things just shake out. I think it's because it's human nature at a certain point. Sure. We want to be playing what everyone else is playing.
That's fair. And also, too, when you talk about the dynamism in this industry, where movie studios have to have that whole marketing team behind them, as you also mentioned, a game could get hot here just by a popular YouTuber deciding,
word of mouth.
Let's play this today.
Yeah.
Or word of mouth like that. So yeah, maybe my initial concerns are not as prescient as I thought.
I mean, I think that there's concerns there, and I think that the good news is they are concerns that a platform like Steam at least has been thinking about for a long time and is trying to come up with solutions to. Sure. We have other platforms like the Nintendo eShop where this stuff is not being thought about at all, and they don't have any good answers, and yet they still have the policy of basically let anything onto the store. So you get 2,500 games in a year released on the Switch last year, and I'm okay with that because I like the idea of someone being like, I made my first game and I just go put it on a Nintendo system. I grew up playing Nintendo. This is great. I'm just going to go tell my friends about it, and I think that's the way it should be. Just Nintendo should take the responsibility of addressing the concerns that you and I have.
Yeah, and I wonder what these numbers would look like on consoles, whether it's, divided by console or grouping all the consoles together, to see if maybe that disparity is more or less. I feel like that would be an interesting case study as well, but I don't know if those numbers ever come out, do they?
No, but I mean, I think we can probably assume it's even more top heavy. Sure. I think that
maybe not in Sony's case. That would be the only one or Xbox's case even too, just because their first party lineup, as we talked about last segment, so in Sony's case, we don't know what it is this year, but in my Xbox's case, we haven't known it for years.
Yeah, but
so
I think like
more.
I think like on console, it's like so rigid. Like everyone gets the broad audience gets it for Call of Duty. They get it for the sports games, and I bet that takes up so much of the money that like by the time we start thinking about the games that we're considering for Game of the Year, that's actually a relatively small part of the market at a certain point.
That's fair.
But and then like indie games, they do occasionally they do better on the Switch than they do on Steam. And the PlayStation indie games for a while there were doing better on PlayStation than on Steam. I don't know what it's like these days because any developers have been complaining about PlayStation, but I bet that yo-yos. I bet it goes up and down. I bet they do pretty decent on PlayStation these days. Either way, it's like I am not like concerned about gaming. Even like when we see these headlines, 60% of revenue to the top 10 games on Steam. Yeah, I think the fact that the overall industry continues growing and we do continue to see hits come out of nowhere, that is like the fertilizer that's going to keep like things churning over in the soil to keep creativity coming out and giving people the belief that maybe something can happen. And so people like keep saying, you know what? I'm going to make my game. I'm going to make my game because I bet that can happen to me. It probably won't, but as long as people continue believing that, we'll continue getting a lot of games. And then, I think I said this on yesterday's show, 1 out of 100 will be good. One out of 100 of those will have like a really good idea, and 1 out of 100 of those will have like a industry changing idea. And that is, that goes back to Minecraft. That goes back to PUBG. All these examples of like things that just completely shifted everything, and that doesn't really happen in other industries. Not so much.
That's true. And also too, like Sam Lake, we talk about a narrative genius now. The next narrative genius could be doing exactly what you just said.
Absolutely.
So it is a good breeding ground. That's for sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break for our ads. When we get back, we got a lot more news right after this. We're back, and I've got another headline here for you, everybody. After 5 years, NCSoft officially grants a license to popular City of Heroes private server Homecoming. Your accounts and characters are safe, the developer says. This comes from Harvey Randall at PC Gamer. If you were like me, the shutdown of the GOAT superhero MMO RPG City of Heroes broke your heart into itty-bitty pieces. It also probably made you happy to see people playing it again when it was revealed that the game code had been salvaged in 2019. Homecoming, alongside a bunch of other servers, promised a return to the good old days. I personally had a great time for a couple of years diving deep into its still active role-playing community. I even made friends who are still playing it. Still, there's always this looming dread that comes with playing on a private server. When will the corpos muscle in and shut down the party? Turns out, not for a very long time. Homecoming has just been given the official nod by NCSoft, as announced by the server today. An announcement reads, "We'd like to make a few things clear. Your accounts and characters are safe. Development of new content will continue. Homecoming will continue to be completely free. We will continue to be funded entirely through donations." Meanwhile, the full announcement, in fact, goes into further details. Homecoming has been granted a license to operate a City of Heroes server and further develop the game, subject to conditions and limitations under the contract. This is awesome. Like, this is the kind of thing where, like, why can't that just happen? And then we always like sit down. We're like, a sober-minded lawyer will come into the chat and be like, listen, this stuff is impossible to figure out. No one wants to do the work to make this happen. People are afraid of, a slippery slope arguments and all this stuff. And it's like, I get all that, but come on, right? It's like, come on, just do it. And someone just did it, and this feels great, right?
It does. It's like that Simpsons skit. Come on, I'll be your friend. No, oh, you're mean. Like that whole Sideshow Bob exchange. I love this. I absolutely love this. We're going to talk in a couple of headlines, if we have time, about game preservation and why it is so precarious. And this is NCSoft doing the right thing and showing appreciation for people who kept their game alive by saying, yeah, go for it. Obviously, there are limitations and conditions. You can't go crazy. I imagine that means you can't go off the rails with content like adult-oriented stuff and stuff like that. But this is awesome. I wish more live service MMOs, live service games like this had this opportunity where a group of players who were so dedicated to it, they made their own server, they put the work in, and they're being officially recognized and appreciated by the original developer. Hey, we don't have the time to do this. You guys obviously love this enough. Have at it. Just don't do anything outside of, what we've set in our contract. It's all yours. Love this. I wish more people would do it.
They mentioned that, this thing is still eventually subject to shutdown, but NCSoft was always in the rights to call curtains beforehand. The story goes on to say, surprisingly, it seems that was never likely to begin with. We've had a really positive and productive relationship with NCSoft for over 4 years now, so we do not anticipate there being any issues. So it's like, I think one of the things for people who are like, hey, I want to go try that out, or I want to get back into that. It's like, man, should I invest that time into something that could evaporate? It's like, no, hey, sure. You are in a safe haven as much as we can possibly be in something where it's like, copyright law and all this stuff. We just cannot guarantee anything. But we're as close to that as possible. That's really nice for people to hear. And I hope this sets precedent. I hope this sets an example. There is, the day before that tragic game that was like never a real thing. People are like, I'm going to work on a offline hack to make that game work offline so people can keep playing it, so we can preserve that. And I'm like, yeah, that's always going to come from the community. More developers should be building their game, and this was never going to happen the day before, but other games, it's like, build your game in the anticipation that in 10, 15 years, this thing will not be a going concern anymore, and have an escape hatch ready to go, where basically now you just kind of pull the core out and it doesn't need online connection anymore. People can easily build their own custom user servers and things like that. Just anticipate that a little bit and make it easier down the line. And when it's time to like actually pull the plug on the thing, say, okay, now it's yours as much as it can be yours. We probably still won't get to that point, because every little thing that costs every little bit a little bit more money, because it's a little bit more work, is just never going to be the first option for these companies. But boy, it would be nice if we could get to that point. I don't know. Maybe I'm dreaming.
Yeah, because in the last couple of years, you've seen so many games start up and then immediately get shut down again. Rumbleverse comes to mind from Iron Galaxy. I loved that game. I would love to be able to still play that, but it just doesn't exist anymore. So something like that, where Iron Galaxy said, there's this dedicated group of people who somehow are still playing it. We give them our blessing. And I think Iron Galaxy would be the type of studio to do that. So if you're out there, so you would, they give them their blessing, we do hold the right to turn this off whenever we need to, but y'all are having fun. Keep having fun. We're not going to stop you. It's good PR, right? Like NCSoft look like heroes. Yeah. A city of heroes, well, you could say. I'm so sorry. I am so
apology accepted.
And then, like you said, maybe it'll inspire other studios to be like, you know what? These people have been doing this off to the side, not bringing any attention to themselves, but we like what they're doing and we appreciate it. So maybe we'll give them a bit of a bump as well. I think as preservation continues to be a major discussion in our industry now, stuff like this is a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I always go back to one of my like touchstones. One of these things I think about every day of my life. A Beautiful Mind. The theory that mathematician came up with of like, Adam Smith says the best thing anyone can do in a capitalist society is what's best for themselves. If everyone does what's best for themselves, then the invisible hand of the market will sort of just figure things out. And it's like, no, there's actually another addendum to that. If everyone does what's best for themselves, and then what's best for the person next to them, that actually has way better effects for everyone and improves things all across the board. And it's like, on the other side of that, like I always go back to that Phil Spencer letter that he wrote internally about all these companies are now competing with like the 14,000 games getting released on Steam. And you used to be like, no, we have relationships with retail. So we're going to be one of 5 games on the store shelf at any one time. And so we have an inherent advantage. Well, that stuff's going away. And now you have to compete with everything. So what can you rely on? Your brand affinity, the relationship you have with the player. Nintendo has that. Sony has that. Microsoft has that. Valve has that. Blizzard has that. Okay, we're starting to trail off. Does EA have that? Does Ubisoft have that? If you're a developer and you want to build long-term success, building a relationship where your players believe in you and believe that you're on their side, doing what's best for yourself, and then what's also best for your players, that has long-term positive ramifications for your bottom line. It's
agreed.
And so now that asking a company to not be myopic and see that, I think it's very difficult. That doesn't mean it's not true. I think it's very true. And so it's like, can they ever hear this argument? I don't know. NCSoft seems like they're hearing it. I feel much warmer about NCSoft today than I ever did before. Like this story right here. Like, this is great. I will be, such I see NCSoft's name, I'm going to be like, that's that cool company that did that cool thing. And that's just such a small thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm dreaming, but I don't know. Does that sound right to you?
It absolutely sounds right to you, especially now in a day and age with layoffs and, late stage capitalists, as people like to call it, corporate decisions. And people are just, what did the one layoff company say? It was a lever we have to pull. I think it was Wizards of the Coast. They used that line. With all of that stuff coming out, there is an opportunity for companies to do good things, if only cynically for the PR.
Right.
If they just want to be cynical and say, we're going to do this as a front-facing measure to get people recognizing our names and saying, hey, that was a cool thing that they did. If that's the only reason NCSoft did this, I'll never know.
It doesn't matter. The results are the same.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is an opportunity for a company to be the one who leads the charge for their gamer base or their player base. And NCSoft took the advice this time. Who's going to be the next one? I'm genuinely curious who the next one's going to be.
And it's kind of was like getting at with like the Beautiful Mind thing. It's like even if like if I need to explain this to a steely-eyed capitalist who is inherently cynical, that's what I'm saying. This could still be beneficial to all of the instincts that you are trying to play to. It can have positive effects for that. And it's a lie. It's a fugazi. It's all a charade. We get it, but the results are the same. The results are better for everyone, and that means it makes it actually better for you in the long term.
Sure. Agree 100%.
All right. There's some news beginning to come out of CES. We got some hardware. I figure we'll talk about a couple of those things, starting with NVIDIA teasing new GeForce cards on the horizon. RTX 40 Super is incoming. We mentioned this the last couple of weeks that this might be happening. Seems like they are going to begin reviewing these things soon. This comes from videocards.com. Less than a week before imminent debut of the GeForce RTX 40 Super series, NVIDIA has teased the upcoming release on social media. Although the company has refrained from explicitly tagging their profile cover pictures with references to the Super series, it's evident that the teaser alludes to new GeForce RTX cards on the horizon. NVIDIA is scheduled to introduce the GeForce RTX 4080 Super, the 4070 Ti Super, and the RTX 4070 Super. And this will all happen on January 8th during the special address at CES 2024. The unveiling will focus on presenting the new GPUs, providing full specifications and pricing details. However, these cards will not be available for purchase until January 17th, marking the official launch date of the first of the three. For those curious about the complete launch schedule, here it is. They're kind of, actually, I might be missing the dates here. But basically, it's going to be happening in a staggered way. They will start with the 4080 Super and go on from there. These things are going to have slight tweaks. Really what this is they get better at manufacturing these over time. So they can change the binning process. And the binning process is, all right, we made a bunch of these, and there's always variations in the production on these very, very tiny lithographs of these like 3 nanometer little lines we're drawing on these circuit boards. So this one actually runs way better than that one. So this goes in that bin, that goes in this bin. After a while, as they improve their process, fewer and fewer of these GPUs go into the, oh, this is not as good bin, and way more go into the like, they basically make a new bin. It's like, okay, the lot are still going into that top tier bin, but some are going even into an even higher bin. And so now we can sort of begin focusing on, like, we have enough to build a whole new piece of the market here. And in the past, they would have just been like, okay, that's just like a percentage here. We'll just keep selling those as the old models, and people will get like, they win the silicon lottery and you get the really good version of it. Now they're like, we can make money by just selling this as a new model. And to be fair, they are getting better at this, so they kind of deserve to be able to extract some value from that if it increases the performance. And I think that's totally fine. But at the same time, not too excited about new video cards these days, Jason Fanelli. I'm like, we kind of got to a point a few years ago where it's like, okay, man, the 30 cards, the 40 cards really good, but people weren't even that excited about them. And now it's like, feels like the 50 cards are this thing on the horizon. Then everyone's like, okay, yeah, tell me about it if it's really interesting, but we'll be fine with what we have for now. And so it's like, man, I think these super cards are going to come out and not make that much of a splash. How are you feeling about, like, I think we talked before, you're not too much of a PC guy, right?
No, my 2070 is doing me well.
Yeah.
But so yeah, to a layman like me, these are just a lot of numbers.
Yes.
That look like an algebra book from high school.
Uh-huh.
Are these replacing current models, or are they sitting next to them?
They usually, the way it's worked in the past with their super cards is some will get replaced and some will stand alongside there. They will probably replace the 4080 standard with the 4080 Super. This could also be a ploy to get people who have not upgraded yet to do so. Yeah. I mean, they're
similar.
Right. They're always trying. Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
And you get to a point where people were coming out of the pandemic, and as much as we've come out of the pandemic, I always got to say that because people yell at you if you don't. As people were coming out of the pandemic, they're like, I kind of upgraded earlier in the pandemic, and now these new cards are here. I don't feel the need to do that. I'll wait to the next generation. Well, now some people are going to get antsy and be like, well, maybe I should upgrade, but I've waited this long. I'm not going to upgrade to the 40 series. I'll wait for whatever's next, thinking the next thing will be the 50 series. And then NVIDIA could be like, well, here's the 40 series at a relative, and like everything's improved, Pricing is kind of looking a little bit better because the price to performance ratio is a little bit better. So hey, hop in now. It's marketing, 100% marketing, trying to make people feel like this is a good time to upgrade. And for some people it will be, and some people it won't be. But I would say, hey, if you're happy with your PC performance now, you could continue to wait. You can continue to wait.
I said I can't really relate, but maybe I can, because this is the same approach I took to the Switch. I still have my launch console from 2017.
And you're not alone.
And when the OLED came out, I'm like, I'm not doing this because I know there's a 2 not too far behind it. I'll just wait for that. They almost had me with the Smash Brothers OLED this year. They almost had me, damn it. Because
I guarantee that's
my favorite.
I guarantee a lot of people were in the same boat as you. And when the Zelda OLED came out, they hopped on that. Like, people eventually get got.
But nope, I know that thing's coming, and I will hold strong. It works. The fan, is a little, it's a little hot maybe sometimes, and it gets really loud, but that's fine. That's fine. I'll just clean it out, and we'll still use that Switch until the Switch 2 comes out. So similar thing here. People are just waiting for the 5 or the 50s instead of the 40s, and they're just releasing different 40s. It's like, as we said in the last one, come on. You know you want to.
What are you doing? Come on.
You do with that 20. Get that 40 in here. Look, this one's super. We'll put a cape on it when we put it in here. So yeah, I mean, I kind of understand the marketing behind it, but again, as a non PC master race, very much a console peasant from the majority of my life. While it bears some resemblance to the console iteration upgrade sort of thing, like PS5 Slim, you could probably put in this sort of conversation as well for people who may not have gotten it yet. It just seems like more iterative than pushing the envelope. I guess that won't happen until the 50s come out.
Feast of Violet in chat says that the ray tracing is a scam. Can I ask how you feel about ray tracing these days?
It's a thing that I look at sometimes. I turn it on and things look nicer, and then I turn it off and things don't look as nice, but the game runs better. I usually tend towards the game running better. So cool. If the game is running great and I can have it on and everything's great, then fine. If not, I'm neither here nor there. It's just not graphics. And this may be heresy to the chat. I'm very sorry. But if I'm ranking story, gameplay, and graphics are third. Deep third.
I bet many people agree with that. Like, yes, they're given performance most of the time. I like, it's not a scam, but I understand what Feast of Violet's getting at, because the way it's used is marketing and manipulation. The way that it was introduced, especially with the 20 series of cards, of the RTX cards, that was NVIDIA having years of people upgrading their monitors to like 1080 and then to 4K and being able to sell people on resolution. So you need a new graphics card. Well, actually, most people stopped upgrading their monitors when they got to 1080p. And in 2014, we got graphics cards that could do 1080p 60 with just about any game released. And those cards still can pretty much run almost any game at 1080p 60. These days, you got to maybe move it down to medium. Most people are happy to do that. So what NVIDIA did was they were like, we're moving on to ray tracing. That's the next big thing that's going to sell everything. Yeah, kid, I'll help you in a second. Hang on. Yeah, there you go. You gonna play Spider-Man? No, but you're gonna play Astrobot? Okay. So like NVIDIA was like,
life, baby.
Yeah. They're like, we gotta try to give a new buzzword to make people want to upgrade.
Yeah. And
the reality was it wasn't ready yet. So of course it's going to feel like a scam. And then at the same time, like ray tracing and the old way of doing it, which is rasterized graphics. The truth is, you're going to have to do, if you're a developer, you have to do both for years and years and years, because so many people are still going to be running games without ray tracing. And so you still have to make a game look good with rasterized graphics. And so it's like, it turns out artists got really good at doing lighting without ray tracing. So you turn it on and off. It's like, to my eye, this mostly looks the same. It's like,
same.
They got really good at that stuff. But the way ray tracing works is it kind of does just work. So it's like the lighting just bounces the way it should. The reflections just bounce the way they should. The ambient occlusion just works the way it should. So it's a benefit to developers. It's just going to take a long time for that benefit to show up because they still have to do all the other work as well.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that I wouldn't call ray tracing a scam, even though I don't quite understand what it is. If anything, NVIDIA is their name, only has to worry about one scam with their cards, and that's crypto. Of all the crypto stuff that they were dealing with back in was it 2022, 2023? All those cards were jumping up in price because of crypto. So I don't think they have. I wouldn't call ray tracing a scam. NVIDIA is only capable of one scam at a time, and it's still crypto, unfortunately. AI bros too, as the chat points out. AI with I think a story just came out that Midjourney was saying that they were scraping images from Magic the Gathering cards.
100%.
So now Daddy Wizards is gonna run up the
I mean,
when that falls apart, somebody else will come in.
New York Times is suing Chat GPT and all that stuff. It's happening.
It is.
All right, well, let's hit these other things from CES real quick. MSI is going to launch a gaming handheld device. The interesting thing about this, and they're probably going to announce it in 2024, is Intel Gaming, not AMD, responded to this thing from MSI. So this might be one of the, there've been Intel chipsets in some of these Chinese handheld gaming PCs, but they've been using some of the older Intel APUs. This would be the first one that uses Intel's new Arc GPUs. So that'll be interesting to see. Intel definitely wants to be in this space because it's going to grow fast, and they don't want to get left behind and have AMD take it over. Because this could vary, like, in a couple of years, the idea of like having a gaming laptop could be absurd when you were, just get a gaming handheld PC because that's way more comfortable and just as powerful. And if AMD runs all of those, that would be a big flip from where it was where Intel used to be in every single gaming laptop. So Intel's trying to catch up real fast. We'll see what that ends up looking like. You do not a PC guy, but you ever think about it like a Steam Deck or an Asus ROG Ally or anything? There it is.
Have to. Welcome to the Lenovo Legion Go, which I'm reviewing for MMORPG.
Fantastic. How do you find that thing? I think that thing's pretty cool.
I do enjoy it a lot. There's one little foible that I haven't figured out yet, is if I put it on sleep mode, go about my business and come back to it, sometimes the screen comes on, but the image doesn't load up. So then I have to hold the button down to force a shutdown and come back on. That's annoying.
That foible has a name. It's called Microsoft Windows. Stop sucking so much. It sucks. God, I hate it. Stop putting it on these things or make it better.
Fair.
God.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I really, the fact that I can play, Baldur's Gate or Cyberpunk or some games that I would not normally play on PC wherever I go is awesome. So far I'm really, really enjoying this. I have to do some benchmarking stuff before the review goes live, but I do enjoy it.
Then Razer's got super fast OLEDs that they're putting in their laptops. So 240 hertz refresh rate OLEDs. Man, an OLED laptop is that's going to be the next laptop I get. It's got to have an OLED screen. I think that would be great. And then, Platinum Apple arcade game World of Demons is ending its service. This comes from Ed Nightingale at Eurogamer. Platinum Games' Apple arcade game World of Demons will end service and no longer be downloadable starting 18th of January. A short blog from the game for the game from Platinum further states the game will be unavailable to play starting from the 1st of February, even for those who have already downloaded it. We extend our gratitude to all players who have enjoyed the game since release, but they gave no further reasoning for the decision. They also haven't said what's going to happen beyond that, other than it's going to be unplayable. Other Apple arcade games we've seen eventually move to like Switch. That doesn't really seem like that's going to happen here, but I guess we don't know. I'm going to say probably not, though. How do you feel about this, Jason?
This stinks, to be honest.
Yes.
Back when I first started working for GameSpot, they had me doing a lot of mobile stuff, and I actually reviewed this game in 2021. Thought it was a lot of fun. It was platinum action on a iPhone whenever I wanted. Gave it like a 7 out of 10, I think it was. So definitely a great way to get that action if you wanted it in an Apple arcade game. But honestly, it goes back to what we're talking about, preservation. This sucks. Like this, if someone may have subscribed to Apple Arcade who was a Platinum fan or an action fan, seen this and said, maybe I'll give it a shot. Now, obviously they probably have their reasons, right? They can't, there's gotta be something, like maybe people aren't playing it as much, or maybe there was some sort of monetization thing that they couldn't use because Apple Arcade doesn't allow it. And then that meant it didn't make as much money as they thought it would, whatever that problem is. I thought it was a fun game, and I'm sad to see it go. I would hope that maybe it resurfaces. It would make sense as a Steam game. It would make sense as a Switch eShop game, especially with thousands of games being released every year. But if they just want to turn the switch off as much as or turn the lever off, excuse me, as much as I hate that that's happening, yeah, it sucks. And there's nothing really else I can say about it.
Yeah. But it goes back like, man, what if they built this with this in mind and had it ready, like an offline version ready to just go to Steam right at this point, or go to Switch even? That would be real nice.
Yeah.
Maybe at certain points, like how much money would that make? I don't know. I feel like a Platinum, this World of Demons game looks pretty good. You said you enjoyed it, thought it was fun. I think it would probably be worth its while, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's hard to convince people that that's actually worth their time, especially when you're just trying to meet deadlines. I understand that reality. Finally, boomer shooters are now an official genre on Steam as classic Doom inspires more and more first-person shooter gems. This comes from Khan Saren at Games Radar. Steam has added another genre tag to the digital storefront, this time officially recognizing the old school boomer shooters as games about booming and shooting surge. The boomer... not boom. They mean boomer as an old person, just to be clear, because I know some people bristle at that when they find out, like, oh, it's about boomer shooters. It's about being a boomer. I love that term. I think it's great.
Oh, me too.
I'm always going to call them boomer shooters. Yes, this is great because I crave these games sometimes, Jason. I'm like, give me more and more of these. Proteus it was one.
That's one.
Yeah,
Dusk.
Dusk. There's a whole bunch. Yeah, Turbo Overkill. And I'm like, man, I just like want to find a new one of those. I don't care who made it, where it's from. Just give it to me. So having this as a button I can press now and just see all of them in one place. Let's go.
Oh, heck yeah. I agree 100%. Next on my radar, actually, I want to try out that Warhammer 40K bolt gun.
Yes, I have that, and I still have never played it.
As well.
Yeah.
Yep, same thing. And then there's two, when I was looking this, because I wrote this up for GameSpot as well, when I was looking at the page to have the coming soon ones, there are Mouse, which made the rounds right at the end of the year. It looks like Steamboat Willie, but it's a first-person shooter. And then I didn't even know about this, Agent 64, Spies Never Die, which is just a GoldenEye like.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
I played that during Steam Next Fest last year. It's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. So like more of those, please. And the fact that you can now highlight them, because when I looked at it this morning, when I was writing that up, there's only 64 games that fell under that label.
Really?
Granted, now that there's a label, that will probably shoot up. And the fact that it was 64, I found to be very funny.
Yes, that's very cool.
But yeah, I mean, so right now is the best time to get in there and buy as many games for your backlog that are boomer shooters as possible, and then go from there. Yeah, this is awesome.
This is fantastic. All right, that's going to do it. I'm going to get to the poll question here in a second. While I get that set up, Jason, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what you have going on, all that good stuff?
They can find me at Big Man Fanelli on basically all social medias that there is, usually lurking in this chat around Game Mess Mornings time too. As I mentioned, Lenovo Legion Go review coming soon to MMORPG. Also reviewing, where is it? The Razer Kitsune, the little small fight stick for PS5. Love this. Look how thin that is.
I love the Kitsune. Yes, I really love that thing.
So that review will come pretty soon. No R Wolves. It is not acceptable to have jalapenos on a cheesesteak. God damn it. But also doing news and everything for GameSpot, podcasts, cheesesteaks, and controllers. I don't update as much as I would like to, but I hopefully will be getting back into that soon. Got 2 fantasy critic drafts this week that I'm very excited for.
Yeah.
I signed up for the podcast producers one too.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
Here I come.
All right.
Here I come.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're in there.
Yeah. So that'll be a good time. I had an idea for a podcast episode where I did like a top 25 games to draft in like a Mel Kiper sort of format.
It would be great.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, here's a game that people are really excited about, not just because their favorite characters are coming back, but because after the last game was so successful and through the story all the way through a loop, we just don't know where it's going to go.
I'm really excited for this behavior impeccable. People love working with this guy. Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
That maybe next year. I'll try and get that.
Mel Kiper's one of those guys. It's like, he's just always been there in my life. It's just every year I can count on, like, I'm going to get several hours of Mel Kiper, and that's good stuff. All right. This is the poll question from yesterday. I thought, I'm like, when did I ask this? It's hard to keep track of stuff at this point. But do you want Nintendo's next console to be an iteration on the Switch or something completely new? No, did I ask this in yesterday? No, this is Thursday. I knew I was behind. Yep, I said it was hard to keep track of. So here's what we're gonna do. I don't think I put the poll question up yesterday. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put it in chat right now, and then chat's gonna respond while we get this going. So here we go. There's polls. Enter question. Do you want? Yeah. What did I say the poll question was going to be? No, there wasn't one. Did I say there was one? But what was the question going to be? Can anyone help me with this or not? Because I've completely left my brain.
I thought I got a YouTube notification for a poll question.
I thought I did it too. Listen.
Wait a minute.
Is Jeff a boomer? Yes, definitely. No, I'm not okay. Because I'm like looking at
hours ago. Do you want Nintendo's next console to be an iteration on the Switch or something completely new? 80% Switch.
Was that 20 hours ago?
Totally
I could have swore that I did that one yesterday. Okay, you know what? Let's just do it again. I don't give a shit. No, I'm not okay, everybody, in case you're wondering. Do you want Nintendo's next console to be an iteration on the Switch or something completely new? 80% say Switch iteration, 20% say something completely new. So there we go. All right. New poll question, though. We definitely have a new one. Here it is. If PS5 only has Metal Gear Solid Delta, Silent Hill 2 Remake, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, is that enough for you? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever done a poll question, everybody, so you guys just bear with me. We'll talk about that on Monday on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today, in about an hour from now, we are going to be doing UPF. The plan is, because Dan's got a hurt fingy, he broke his finger. The plan is I'm going to play games, and then we're going to use Discord to pipe in his audio, and he will be doing the voice control on voice-controlled games. We will start with Odama, but I got some other things, and we'll see how that goes.
Please tell me Hey You Pikachu is one.
I have Hey You Pikachu as a possibility. So we'll see. I also like Tom Clancy's Indoor. There's a platformer that you can only play by singing and humming. So I don't know how that actually works, but we'll see. So that will be happening. Excuse me. That will be happening in about an hour, and then after that, 2 hours after that, we will have Bombcast Revengeance. I think we're going to do a predictions episode, like binding predictions that we'll look back on at the end of the year. So cool. That's in the works. We'll see. Look out for all that later today here on Giant Bomb. In the meantime, Jason, thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I always love talking about games with you.
Yeah, always a pleasure, my friend. Anytime you need me, right here in this chair.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
There's the feed. All right.
And